Hey, Billy Dillard from Billy Dillard Art. Well, we're in the fairy house today working on these vines. So if you're wanting to figure out how to use your foam and create a hard shell over it and create some texture, really simple, fast, speed your process up, but it'll be a good durable product, this will be the video for you. So today we're using Smooth On Habitat Freeform, and that's what the material we're using to put over the foam. So I've already got some mixed, and you see I down here on my little board here, I've cut them into little strips where I can manage them easy, because when you pick them up, you'll see they start stretching. So if you try to do too long of a strip, you're going to have problems. That's why they're little strips like that. So the first thing, this foam, that's Pink Panther foam that you can get at Home Depot, Lowe's may carry it, I don't know. So I actually sculpted that first before I ever attached it to the wall. And if you want to see how that was done, just let me know. I could always make a video on how I actually did that. So now we're going to go ahead and start applying the Habitat Freeform and show you how it's done. So let's get started. So, and you notice you really need the board here. It's like got a slick, it's a plastic finish, and you keep it wet down with water, because if you don't, your epoxy is going to stick to it. You don't want that. And if it's too thick, you can actually stretch it, so you could actually stick it on there, and then you can kind of just gently pull it as you go and stretch it out. And if it's right here where it ends, just pinch it off. And then this here, I want it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's a little over 1/8, so right here I can just squeeze these two together and close that line, as you can see right here. I don't overwork this, because I'm going to be using a stamp on it just here in a minute. This here, the big thing is to keep your line here clean. So you can just push that up like so. Like I say, blend your edges together, but don't worry about overworking it, because that texture stamp does miracles. Now let me see, I'm going to go ahead and add another piece here. So let's see. Squish that in there. Pinch it off. This here, I'm going to shave this down. I'll go get a razor blade and cut that down before I add anything to that, where I don't end up using so much epoxy right there. So just stick it up there. So what I do is I got my straight edge on my epoxy. I lay it up there where I want it. And then just gently fold it over. And then just pinch the gap. Like I say, you'll feel it when you pick it up if your epoxy strips are thick or thin. And depending on if they're too thick, you can kind of move it around, thin it out a little bit. Key thing is you don't want to get it too thin, because you want a good hard shell. Right there, I can cut that off. Keep your gloves wet and your wooden tool wet when you're working this. That way your tools don't drag your epoxy and your gloves don't stick to it. And don't worry, it's definitely still going to cure out. If you mixed it up correctly, which Smooth On certainly has videos on mixing their product on YouTube. If you mix it up correctly, you're not going to have an issue with it curing like it should. Okay, so that's just kind of lightly go over it to get the kind of the shape I want. And now I come back in with a rubber stamp. You can see the texture I got in here. So I did a bunch of different tree samples around here in the yard in the summertime when it was nice and warm. Made me a bunch of rubber stamps out of latex. But I would highly suggest using silicone, because for one thing, if there's a little moisture in the tree, the silicone will still cure compared to latex. If it gets some moisture in it while you're trying to work it, lay it up, it's not going to cure out right. So what you do is you take your stamp, you dip it in water, that's your release agent, and then you just kind of like And then just change your pattern around, because that way you don't want the same pattern everywhere. And you just lightly create your texture, unless you want really deep texture. But just depending on how much texture you want. There you go, boom, got it. Piece of cake, easy peasy. Down here, we can create some right here. You can take the edge of it, of your stamp, and you can catch it under there and push that up, because you don't want this flattening out and then kind of scallop in there. You don't really want that. You want to keep a good clean edge. And then later on, if you want to, you can come back with a paintbrush. Now, what I call it knock it down. Other people may have different names. This is a little early to do it. I'd give it about 30 minutes. And you can come back and just lightly brush over it and knock your texture down a little bit if you want to. Just depends on what look you're trying to create. But it'll take the sharp edges off. And all you need is your water and your paint, your cheap little chip brush. That's all you need to do that with. And boom, got it. All right, like I say, this is the Habitat Freeform. Really like it. It's just working out great for what we're doing. It's easy to handle. Love the stuff. And we'll be back shortly to show you more results.